Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. Imagine a world where women and men share equally the power to run it. Gloria Feldt's passion is to inspire women to do just that. She's an activist with boundless energy who discovered her own power in her own life and now exhorts us to do the same. She's the author of 4 books. She teaches women power and leadership at Arizona State University, and she's an awesome speaker. She's my guest today. Welcome.
Hi, Ronnie.
You know, Tip O'Neill, I don't know quite, but Tip O'Neill is supposedly the person who said the personal is political or politics, something like that.
Right.
That's really what you describe as the thing in your soul that has put you on this path.
That is so true. Now, I'm thinking Robin Morgan would probably take credit for it, and I might give it to her too, but my guess is that many people may have come up with that because it is so true that whatever we do is both personal and political, and very often we forget that. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's important for women to understand that whatever we each do in our lives actually sets a pattern for another woman coming down the line. And so it really is important for us to keep walking through those doors that we have opened.
You're very focused on the use of power, or the word power, and what it means. Mm-hmm. And that was the other thing that I thought I garnered for what you say, is that your realization of power also came from your own experiences.
It did.
That the power lies within all of us.
Right.
It's how we're going to get it out there and what we're going to do with it. Is that sort of what it is?
Well, it is, and it's let me just give you a little bit of the whole path to getting to where I am right now, because I certainly did not start out understanding this or even thinking about it. But because I grew up in rural West Texas, where women were not given, certainly at that time, and to some extent even still today, were not given particular aspirations to achieve high education, or certainly not to have careers. And so I married, I had children very early, and then I sort of woke up. I started to college. When my youngest child was 4 months old, I was age 20. And it was really at that moment that I began to understand a little bit about it, but not for myself. First, it was for other people. That was the era of the civil rights movement, and I got involved, and it was such a passion, and I was so, wanted so much to help. And there was a moment where I had an epiphany, which was, wait a minute, if there are civil rights, then guess what? Women must have them too. And it was at that point that I started really working for women's advancement. But I'd have to say, even then, I didn't really understand it for myself. It's a lot easier for women.
Oh, I understand.
To use
it's like you're telling my
yes,
story.
That's right.
Totally.
It's a lot easier for women to advocate for other people than to advocate for themselves. And so honestly, I was already a grandmother before I finally figured this thing out a little bit, that, you know what, I actually could make things happen. And what I found as I was researching and teaching women about the issue of power and leadership was that if I could enable women to shift how they were defining power from what I think is an old, now very outdated definition that has been pretty much how men have defined the word and the world, which is the power over people and the power over things, the power to make you do something. Women have borne the brunt of very negative aspects of that kind of power. So therefore, they have negative attitude about power and about assuming power. But once we can shift that thinking to understanding power as the power to, the power to make life better, the power to accomplish something, the power to make the world better for our kids, our family, the community, the world, then I would just see women's faces relax. And they would say, oh yeah, I want that. And for me, it was the same. I want that kind of power.
So in a way, the realization, yes, that's what I want, is sort of like, it's parallel, but it's not the same, of course, to the original consciousness raising that we did early on in the 60s, when we listened to other people and say, oh yes, I understand that.
Very true,
right?
very true, very true. And then to realize that the locus of that power is inside, not outside of us. Because as women, again, we are socialized, and this is still true to some extent today, although with each generation it gets a little better. But even today, girls are more socialized to think first of how what they're doing affects other people. And so you begin to see the locus of power outside of you when that is what you're learning. And certainly that's a lot of what we get from the media, because we're told how we should look, we're told how we should act. Women are still very much objectified in many different areas of our culture.
But to go back to just a minute, but if you know that you have the power to do something, what you're saying is it's the object that you want to make more elaborate, which would include yourself.
Yes, yes, and to understand that it's within, and that doesn't mean that there aren't still external barriers. There certainly are. There are plenty of implicit biases left in the workplace, in politics. We only have to look and see how women are treated when they run for political office to know that there's still plenty of implicit bias out there, even though we've changed laws, we've opened doors, we've told now 2 generations of women you can do anything you want to do. But there still are those external challenges. That having been said, the fact is that since the barriers are all more subtle now, that it's really up to us as individuals and up to us, I believe very strongly in the power of the collective.
Oh, definitely.
And so it's up to us as a sisterhood, in essence, and to join with men who share this desire for
It's running
equality.
parallel to a lot of political movements, like in the election campaigns and Dean's campaign, the Obama campaign, activating the grassroots and showing them that they have the power to really do something. Or even now with groups coming from different neighborhoods that are reflective of the population in the neighborhood, that they're no longer going to be dictated by outside forces. They're the ones who are going to serve their own needs and get them.
Right.
So you're a 21st century feminist movement, right? I don't
Exactly,
know.
exactly. I think it's kind of the movement for this moment, and I want to say I would never say that we're starting a movement anew, because clearly we all stand on the shoulders of those who came before, and I certainly know that as well as anybody. But it is important. A movement has to move. A movement has to always be doing new things. And I think that going for leadership parity is the next big leap for the women's movement.
So there's some astonishing figures, like the number of women who graduate from college. There are more women than men that are graduating from college, are there? Is that what?
57% of the college degrees are earned by women, and that has been the case now for almost 2 decades. So cumulatively, women are earning almost 2/3 of the college degrees. And in a society where brains, not brawn, will drive the future, that tells you why big global corporations are learning that if they want to fill their workplace with talented people and high-performing people, they have to start marketing to women. They have to start appealing to women. And the tech companies are just falling all over themselves to try to get more women into the pipeline, and not understanding why women are not just falling all over them.
Is there a lot of corporate theory, or in business schools, are they teaching different ways of managing and using power?
That's a great question, and I think that they're a little behind the times in that. That I think that's one of the things that Take the Lead can do, is to help to set a model and to try to infuse the whole teaching of leadership with 2 important elements that are unique to what we're doing with Take the Lead. One of them is addressing the issue of our individual relationship with power and how to embrace it in a positive way, and do it in I think once everybody sees power as power too, that's literally going to be transformational, and it's going to change how every organization functions. The second is to understand the principles of movement building. And sometimes people think that's a little bit odd, because why would, in the business world, anybody be interested in learning about movement building principles? Well, fine, you can call it change management if you want to, or change leadership. But the point is that you can change a system as well as telling women how to change themselves. We've been trying to tell women how to change themselves now for many years, and they have been stuck at 18% of the top leadership positions across all sectors for 20 years.
And the other figure that's so astonishing, the number of women on corporate boards.
Yes,
What is it?
17, 18%. Yeah, depends on the level.
And these are large corporations. And
Yes.
some of the women are on duplicate other boards.
Yes.
More than one.
Exactly. And when you think about it, particularly for consumer products companies, women buy 85% of the consumer goods, and yet they're still 15 to 20% at most of the boards of directors of the companies that decide what products we're going to have the option to buy. And I think if women would mass their strength, they could define every consumer product in the world.
When I worked at Ms. Magazine many years ago, Pat Carbine and the advertising manager and I went to Detroit to try to tell the companies that women should pay attention to women, that it isn't only men who make the decisions about cars. And now we've got a woman who's the president of General Motors, right? So do we think we're going to see a different management style?
Well, this is interesting, and I love that you just brought Mary Barra up, the new CEO of GM, because I literally just last night finished writing a blog post about her, so I've been researching a little bit about it. And the reason is that I wanted to find out what percentage of cars are now being bought by women. It's 52% of all the new cars are bought by women, and women are involved in close to 90% of the decisions about car purchases. So that's the good news. So there's a real economic driver now for women to get into more of those positions. On the other hand, what is very stereotypically female about Mary Barra is, guess what? She accepted a compensation package half of what her predecessor was earning, and he had never worked in the auto industry until he took the job, and he was only in it for 2 years. And he's getting paid more as a consultant now to the company than she is as the CEO. So we need to kind of get around her and help her understand that she's setting the path for other women.
Now, women have different perspectives, don't they, that should be reflected? I mean, I've always said women have a different perspective that is missing in public policy unless they're into it in big ways. It's the same thing with everything, isn't it? Don't women see the world a little differently than men?
Yes, the simple answer to that, Ronnie, is yes. And it doesn't mean every woman, and it doesn't mean all the time.
Right.
But just overall, what we know is that look at who it was who was able to get a budget agreement done in Congress last year. Okay.
Yeah.
It was the women. Women are typically much more willing to work across the aisles because they're more interested when they're in politics. They're kind of more interested in solving the problems than in beating their own chests. And that seems to hold true no matter what level of government that you look at. In the business world and in organizations, women are typically more collaborative in their leadership style. And it was interesting when I was reading the articles about Mary Barra, and although she kept saying, well, gender shouldn't play a role, you know, I'm chosen because I'm the best candidate. Well, yes, you are the best candidate, but it's your gender characteristics that make you the best candidate.
Yeah, right.
And it was, when reading the descriptions of her, it was like reading all of the annals of everything they say about women's leadership. They say she's low-key, they say she's collaborative, they say she's, you know, reaches consensus. And those are skills that women tend to bring to the table. And you know, what I think every organization is finding is that in a diverse world, if you don't have diversity of all kinds around the decision-making table, you're going to miss the boat.
Right. And we should emphasize diversity of all kinds.
Totally, across the board.
And I mean, the world is changing, right?
It's changed already.
And once you have that power, it's something. I was watching Sandra Fluke the other night on television. She's now running for Congress. And she walked across, she's the young woman from the audience, you know,
one of my heroines.
who challenged the committee that was talking about abortion, I think, saying it was all male.
Well, actually talking about whether birth control should be covered by insurance. Yes.
Right. And the whole panel was male.
Men, yes.
And she was still a law student. But she found that power, and you could tell the way she just walked across the stage, you know?
Right.
Lily Ledbetter is another example, aren't they, of women who've really come face to face with the ability to do something on their own behalf?
Yes, and what you find is that women, again, they'll fight for something if they feel like there's an injustice.
Oh, absolutely. That
you know,
was
if they feel like there's an injustice, they will find that power and they will fight for it.
So we want them to go one step further.
That's right. Yeah. To think ahead, be intentional about it. You know, when I was looking at the issue of women running for office and found that the story was they didn't, and that was why they weren't winning. It wasn't that they couldn't win; it was that they weren't running. What I kept hearing from the heads of all the organizations that help women run for office was this: that say, a man will get up in the morning, he'll look at himself in the mirror, and he'll say, I believe I'll run for Senate. He will not question whether he's qualified or whether he has the right to do so. A woman may think, I'm interested in, I'd like to do this, I'd like to run for office, but first I should learn something. First, maybe I should take some courses, maybe I should work in campaigns, maybe I should do, well, by the time she runs, the man is already the committee chair.
I personally always felt nobody was really pushing me to run for something else, you know? So maybe I didn't know enough to run for something else. It's a very interesting kind of thing that happens.
Women wait to be asked. The Women's
Yes,
Campaign
yes.
Fund says women wait to be asked, and they generally have to be asked three
Several
or 4
times.
times before
Yes.
they will run.
Isn't that interesting?
So we need to get over that.
Yeah.
We need to get over that, because after all, if we don't run for office, we can't really complain about what lawmakers do, can we?
No.
Right.
Well, we can.
And you know, if
we can, because we also want men to do what they're supposed
Well,
to.
yes, but
Right.
you know, you can't
Yeah.
win if you don't run.
Right. No,
You
that's
can't win
true.
if you don't run,
Right,
and if you
absolutely.
don't try.
And you can't make a change if you don't try.
That's right.
Exactly. We didn't talk about what Take the Lead is. I mean, we were talking about you.
Yes.
So let's talk about this new project, this new undertaking you've had, which is off to a very fast, successful pace, I think.
Indeed, I think we have just tapped into a huge energy that's out there in the world right now of women ready to go and ready to take their fair share of leadership positions, and that's what Take the Lead is about. Its mission is to prepare, develop, inspire, and propel women to take their fair and equal share of leadership positions across all sectors by 2025. That is about 57 years faster than the current trajectory we are on. And people say, why did you pick 2025? I say, because I've been an activist for women for 40 years now. And if I could live another 70 years, I would. But the odds are not good. So we need to move it faster. And I truly believe this is a moment when we can. We looked at what was being done, and there are thousands of women's leadership programs, thousands. Women soak up women's leadership programs. But there are some missing pieces. And what we find is that A, it needs to be comprehensive, so we will be comprehensive. B, it needs to put a stake in the ground. That's why we say 2025, and we're going to count up. C, it needs to be collaborative and utilize all of our talents of all of these organizations that are doing this, but we need to mass it and make it bigger than the sum of the parts. And D, we need to deal with the issues of women's relationship with power and teach women how to work together to build their own little mini movements to make change happen. And so Take the Lead does it in 4 ways. We have Take the Lead Teaches, and those are learning programs both on the ground and online for 3 different target groups, the groups that we think we can make the most difference with. College age and just entering the workforce, that mid-career place where women so often drop out, and just under the top, where some little extra help may really make a difference. The second is Take the Lead Connects, and that will be our digital platform for mentoring and networking. The third is Take the Lead Presents. Those are events where we will have role models so that we as women can see, you know, if you can see it, you can be it kind of thing. And frankly, our Take the Lead launch event on February 19th at Arizona State University and live streamed everywhere will be one of those role model events. Bigger than most, but it will be aimed at showing these amazing women so that we can all learn from them. How did they do it? And then fourth is Take the Lead Drives Change. And that is the thought leadership and explicit movement building component where we intend to write and put issues out on the table for the public to think about, as well as bringing together leaders in the field of women's leadership programs to try to get us working together and doing more great work.
So is it all within the whole world of women, or are you going to pressure corporations and banks and all those things to also understand the importance of including them?
Well, we will see where it goes from here. We need to get ourselves started. We're only a year old, so we have a lot on our plate right now, but clearly a part of the teaching of movement building skills is aimed at enabling the women who are inside those organizations to make those kinds of changes themselves. And by the way, to make alliances with the men who share their values. And what we're finding is that there's a generation of men who've been raised by women like us.
Yeah.
and they want a different workplace too.
Right. And the others are aging out.
That's right, yeah. So there are many opportunities.
So there's great
there.
hope, I
Yeah,
guess.
right.
And the need for mentoring other women and supporting them and bringing them with you. I mean, that's, as you said before, the collective body and working together is such an important thing. It's really such strength, and people should, do you think they understand it more now than they used to?
It is very important, and I think what happens realistically is that when you're the first woman in, or when there are just a few women in a whole big field of men, you tend to isolate yourself.
And you're under such pressure.
And you're under such pressure.
Enormous
and
pressure.
So what I encourage people to do is to understand that self-isolation doesn't serve them very well. And that they're actually better served to find the other people who share their concerns. And they may be women or they may not be women. I mean, I just learned that a great male friend of mine has started a lean-in circle in his law firm for men.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So I think there's, these things are happening all over, and we need to make those alliances.
When you say men, is it for younger men or all the men or
he's
partners?
Probably 70 some odd years old. So for men whose sensibilities are such that they really support equality between the genders.
It's so interesting. It really is. So the response has been overwhelming, right?
The response has been amazing. It's been amazing.
And it's live streamed at what time?
Okay, so the live stream it will be at 8 o'clock Eastern time. It will be there for 7 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Mountain, and 5 o'clock Pacific. So we were trying to get it at a time when anybody anywhere in the country could realistically sit down and see it. It'll be a 2.5-hour program, and there are lots of places here in the New York area where people are having parties, or they're having a reception beforehand, or a conversation of some kind, and then they're going to sit down and watch it and then have more discussion. There are all kinds of things happening. I mean, I've heard from women in the EU who are having pajama parties because it'll be in the middle of the night there. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
You talk, I think there are a lot of references at different places to organizations in England and other places. Are we further behind? Are we contemporary? Where are we with women?
Well, the U.S. is not exactly at the top of the heap. I will
really
say
low,
it's
isn't
not
it?
so great. When it comes to holding political office, we are about at 95th, among the 190 some odd countries. So we're right smack in the middle. This is not good. When it comes to women in executive positions, I think we are a little bit better, but not a great deal. One of the issues here is, again, our workplace policies and our public policies are not very supportive of families with children.
I know we rate very low.
Yes.
With childcare, sick leave, maternity
Parental leave, yes.
Anything. We're
Right.
very low.
Right, and that really has hampered many women from going forward. So the U.S. has a lot to speak for itself. I mean, the fact that we do have so many women who have college degrees, the fact that they're prepared, that they're capable, and that they're ready, they want to accomplish things, is very positive. But now we need to get across all those barriers.
Yes, that's going to be.
And that's going to be big. That's
Right.
going to be, there will need to be ultimately a
Outside.
public policy and a corporate policy
Definitely.
piece of this.
Yeah. It's astonishing to me that the women's groups, they work together very well, don't they?
Some women's groups do. And some
I
women's
shouldn't.
groups-
Oh,
right,
all right.
Yeah. I think it's not so much not working together. I think the real problem that I have found as I've been working on Take the Lead is that for many of the women's groups, they've been around now a long time, and they're doing things the way they've always done them. And that's why we want to focus on the solutions, not just the problems. Because we have, for 40 years, we've been hearing the same narrative, which is, isn't it awful? Isn't it terrible? And you get that, and so you're fighting against something. But we are at the place now when we should be fighting for something and saying, okay, this is the way it needs to be. We're going to go get it. We're going to set the agenda. And it's hard for an organization that has an entrenched set of
Way of doing
programs to change that. But I think they'll come along.
What do you think of the current drive for pre-K? I mean, we've been talking about this for how many years?
Yeah, I mean, my first real job was teaching Head Start. At that point, it seemed like, well, yeah, and that it would be everywhere.
So what drove it? Is it that the men are talking about it? Finally, I don't understand. It was just over, was it all the mayoral this de Blasio that started this whole thing? I don't know.
Well, I don't know exactly where it started, but number one, when you are a progressive candidate, one of the things that you can always count on that people will look on positively is if you want to do something for children. So it's kind of a slam dunk in that respect.
So let me just, because we only have a minute. What's so important, it also seems to me, not only changing the distribution of power and the use of it, but to understand the changing in our lives. I mean, more women are not married, aren't they? I mean,
True.
More families are what is it? The divorce rate is more than 50% now.
Well,
or they're single parent families that choose to be that way.
I think the real point here is that women are economically important and important to the families. That's the real issue, is that when women are still earning 77 cents to men's dollar, I don't know if you saw the Shriver report recently, but they calculated how many billions and billions and billions of dollars would be added to the GNP if women were only paid equally.
Yes.
So it's an economic necessity now, and so that's when you know you can start making headway.
True. Well, that's a good way to end this program. Gloria Feldt, thank you so much, and much good luck, and I hope all the women join and we all collaborate to make the world a better place.
Well, thank you, and thank you for taking the lead so often in your own life, Ronnie.
Please. Thanks.
Thank you.
If there are any people you'd like to hear and topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.